He thought he was just saving a drowning girl. But within 24 hours, the army aimed rifles at his head. 5 tribes called him their savior. And one warlord swore he must die, all because of one secret that could unite or destroy an entire people. What would you choose? Peace or survival? The sun had almost set when Daniel Moore set up his small tent near the river. The water flowed fast after 3 days of steady rain. Daniel liked the sound. It covered his thoughts and gave him peace. He had worked hard all week in his forge. Now, he just wanted a quiet night alone. He added wood to the fire and leaned back against a tree. The smoke drifted into the sky, and for the first time in days, Daniel let his shoulders relax. The river roared beside him, a strong reminder of nature's power. Then he heard it, a scream. It was faint at first, almost lost in the sound of the rushing water. But it came again, louder this time, sharp, desperate. Daniel stood up quickly. His heart began to race. He grabbed his lantern and ran toward the edge of the riverbank. The rain had made the ground soft and slippery. He nearly fell twice before reaching the edge. There, in the middle of the river, was a figure. A young woman clung to a rock, her body half submerged in the wild current. Her long dark hair whipped around her face. One arm held tight to the stone, the other flailed in the water. She was slipping. Without thinking, Daniel threw off his coat and boots. The water was freezing, but that did not stop him. He jumped in. The current pulled hard, as if the river itself wanted to keep her. Daniel kicked and swam against it, pushing himself with all his strength. His arms burned. His legs went numb. But he reached her. "Take my hand," he shouted. Her eyes met his, wide, unblinking, as if she had been waiting for him. She grabbed his hand with surprising strength, and he pulled her free from the rock. They fought the river together, side by side, struggling toward the shore. Twice, he thought they would both drown, but inch by inch, they made it. Daniel collapsed onto the muddy ground, gasping for air. The girl lay beside him, coughing up water, her face pale and scratched. After a long silence, she turned to him. "You saved me," she said softly. Daniel sat up and looked at her. She was young, maybe 20. Her eyes were deep brown, almost black. But it was the way she looked at him that unsettled him. Calm, focused, knowing. "I heard you scream," he said. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," she replied. "Not anyone." He frowned. "What's your name?" "Leona," she said. "And you are Daniel Moore." Daniel froze. "How do you know my name?" She stood slowly, water dripping from her dress. "You'll understand soon." Then she walked into the trees, her steps steady, as if she had never been in danger at all. Daniel sat in the dark, confused and soaked to the bone, watching her disappear. A strange feeling settled over him, like something had started that he could not stop, and he had no idea what was coming next. The morning sun rose slowly, casting a golden light through the trees. Mist still floated above the river, and the ground was wet and cold beneath Daniel's boots. He had barely slept. His mind kept returning to the girl, Leona, the way she said his name, the way she disappeared into the forest without fear or thanks. He poured hot water over coffee grounds, trying to make sense of it all. Maybe she had seen him in the nearby village. Maybe someone told her his name. That would make sense. But somehow, it didn't feel that simple. Then he heard it, again. Not a scream this time. Hoofbeats. Many. Daniel stood up fast, grabbing the axe he had used to cut wood the night before. The sound grew louder, and soon he could see them, riders. Dozens, coming from 3 different directions. Horses strong and tall. Their riders dressed in traditional clothing, feathers and leather, each carrying painted shields or decorated spears. They were not here by accident. Daniel backed toward the fire, his hands raised, showing he meant no harm. The riders stopped a few steps from his camp. 3 elders stepped forward, one from each group. The oldest had silver hair in 2 long braids. He carried a carved staff with eagle feathers tied to the top. Another wore a robe of deep blue with shells sewn into the seams. The third, a younger man with strong eyes, wore a bear-claw necklace and had markings on his face. The silver-haired elder spoke first. "You are Daniel Moore." Daniel swallowed. "Yes, I am." You pulled the river girl from the water last night. Yes. The elder nodded. Then you're the one we have been waiting for. Daniel's mouth went dry. What do you mean? The younger man stepped forward and opened a cloth bundle. Inside were items unlike anything Daniel had seen. An old blade made of obsidian, a necklace woven from wolf fur and beads, a small mask carved from bone. These are gifts, the man said. Sacred items passed down for generations. They are now yours. Daniel shook his head. I think you're making a mistake. I just helped someone who was drowning. The elder's voice became deeper. Leona is not just someone. She is the blood of our past. Her mother was from the Bear Clan. Her father from the Sky Circle. She carries the line of 3 nations in her. The blue-robed woman finally spoke. And you, Daniel Moore, brought her back when the river tried to take her. The prophecy says the one who saves the blood child will awaken the choice. What choice? Daniel asked, but none of them answered. Instead, the silver-haired elder looked toward the hills. There are others who do not believe in peace. They come with anger, and they will see you not as a sign of hope, but as a threat. Daniel looked at the horizon. Dust rose in the distance. Something was coming, and it was not bringing gifts. Daniel sat on a log near the dying campfire. The sacred gifts still lay untouched beside him. The elders had gone quiet, whispering among themselves. Riders stood guard around the clearing, watching every tree as if expecting something or someone to appear. Daniel ran a hand through his damp hair. All he had wanted was a few days of peace, a break from the village, from people, from noise. But now he was caught in something he did not understand. Why are you really here? He asked, his voice rough from worry. The silver-haired elder sat across from him. His name, Daniel had learned, was Toma. His eyes were wise but heavy with fear. Leona was not simply drowning, Thomas said. She was running. There are those who want her gone, because she carries something more dangerous than a weapon. Daniel frowned. What could be more dangerous? A secret, Toma replied. Something that could change everything for our people. Something worth killing for. Daniel's stomach turned. And by saving her, I've what? Started a war? Not started, said the younger leader, whose name was Jalen, but awakened one. Daniel stood and began pacing. I don't want to be part of this. I'm a blacksmith. I live alone. I fix broken tools, not broken histories. Toma's voice was calm. Then perhaps that is exactly why the prophecy chose you. Stop saying that, Daniel snapped. Prophecies. Bloodlines. Secrets. I don't even know this girl. Jalen stepped forward, his voice firm. And yet, she knew your name. She trusted you without question. That matters. Daniel looked toward the river. The mist had started to fade, but the feeling of confusion stayed heavy on his chest. He wanted to walk away, ride back to town, pretend this was all just a strange dream. But he could not. From the north, more riders appeared. These men looked different. Their faces were painted with dark colors, and their eyes were hard. No gifts in their hands, only weapons. They have found us, whispered the woman in blue. Her name was Sani. Jalen turned to Daniel. You must understand. Some tribes believe you are a sign of peace. Others believe you are a curse. I didn't ask for any of this, Daniel said. And yet here you are, Sani replied gently. Daniel stared at the approaching riders. They were close now, dust in their wake, bows strapped to their backs, blades at their sides. What do they want? Toma's voice was low. They want Leona silenced. And you forgotten. Daniel felt the ground shift beneath him, though it did not move. Something deep inside him knew. He could not walk away from this, even if he wanted to, even if it cost him everything. Night had fallen. The air was cold, and the forest around the camp seemed to whisper secrets. Daniel sat near the fire again, wrapped in a blanket someone had given him. His muscles ached from the rescue. His mind ached more. Leona returned just after dark. She walked silently between the guards, her wet dress now replaced with a simple brown robe. Her long hair was braided, and around her neck hung a leather pouch. Daniel stood as she approached. You ran off last night, he said. You nearly drowned. Then you vanished like nothing happened. Leona's eyes softened. I had to be sure you were the one. The one for what? He asked, voice sharp. She sat beside the fire. Do you know about the Hidden Valley? No. It's a place lost to time, she said. a valley between the ridges where no settler has ever gone. Our ancestors called it the breath of the earth. They said it holds the truth about who we were before war, before division. Daniel listened, unsure what to believe. Leona reached into her pouch and pulled out a thin piece of animal skin. She unrolled it carefully. Lines, symbols, half a map. My mother gave me this, she said. It leads to the valley, but only half of the way. Daniel leaned in. The markings were strange, but beautiful. Where is the other half? Leona looked at him. That's where you come in. He laughed. Me? I don't even believe in prophecies. Maybe not, she replied. But something guided you to that river. Something made you jump in. You risked your life for someone you didn't know. That is not normal, Daniel. He said nothing. The fire cracked. She continued. I believe you are meant to walk with me, to find the other half. But not everyone wants that valley found. Daniel stared at her. Who's trying to stop you? She looked over her shoulder. Her voice dropped to a whisper. His name is Vakari. Daniel tensed. Who is he? A warlord, she said. Leader of the Fire Plains. He believes the valley hides something dangerous. He wants to destroy it, or claim it for himself. Why? Because truth scares him, she said. Because if our people remember who we truly are, they won't follow him into war. Daniel stood up. Why not go to someone else? A warrior, a leader. Because they've already chosen sides, she said quietly. You haven't. Daniel stared into the flames. He didn't want to be involved in any of this. He wanted to go home. But something inside him said this moment mattered. What happens if we don't find it? He asked. Leona looked up, her voice steady. Then lies become history, and history becomes war. The sun had not yet risen when the sound of drums echoed through the valley. Daniel woke to shouting and the thunder of hooves. He rushed out of his tent, boots half-tied, heart pounding. On the ridge above the camp, riders appeared, fierce and silent. Their faces were painted in red and black. Their leader sat tall on a black horse, his armor made of bones and leather. His name carried fear. Vakari, the warlord of the Fire Plains. He raised his hand, and the riders stopped in perfect silence. Then his voice rang out like a blade through the morning air. Daniel Moore, he called, you are a disease brought by outsiders. You saved a girl who was not meant to live. You have touched what you do not understand. For this you must die. The peaceful tribes gathered around Daniel. Thomas stepped forward. This man did nothing but save a life. Vakari's eyes burned with rage. A life that carried danger. She should have drowned. That was her fate. Leona stood beside Daniel. Her face was calm, but her hands were clenched. I made my own choice, Vakari, and Daniel made his. You tricked him, Vakari said. He does not know our ways. He is no guardian. He is a weapon wrapped in kindness. Daniel stepped forward. I never asked to be part of this. And yet you are, Vakari growled. He raised his spear. Stand aside, or I will take what is mine by force. The peaceful tribes did not move. Spears were drawn. Arrows raised. Leona took a breath and spoke loudly. There is something you all should know. Every eye turned to her. I never lost a map. Daniel looked at her, confused. What? She reached into her robe and pulled out a second scroll, older, thicker, marked with both sides of the sacred path. I've always had the full map, she said. I only gave you half, because I wanted to see if you were the man I hoped you were. Daniel took a step back. You tested me? I needed to know, she said. If you would choose peace, not pride. If you would walk beside me, not lead, not follow, but choose. Vakari snarled. You used him. No, she said. I trusted him. Daniel looked around. Arrows were still drawn. The sun rose behind the trees, casting long shadows over the camp. He turned to Leona. And what now? She held out the full map. Now we walk the path. Together. Vakari lifted his spear, rage trembling in his hands. But something stopped him. Daniel. He stepped forward, not with a weapon, but with open hands. I am not your enemy, Daniel said. But I won't run from truth either. The peaceful tribes formed a wall around him. Vakari stared long and hard. Then, without a word, he turned his horse and vanished into the trees. The war had not begun, but it was closer now than ever before. The sun was high when the elders called Daniel to the center of the circle. He stood barefoot, the earth warm beneath his feet. Around him stood members of all 3 peaceful tribes. Toma, Sani, and Jalen watched from behind a ring of sacred stones. Leona stood nearest to him, holding the full map pressed against her chest. "This is the trial of truth," Thomas said, his voice deep and clear. "You did not ask for this path, Daniel Moore, but the path chose you." "I'm not special," Daniel replied. "I just saved someone." "And that," said Sani, "is what makes you different." The people began to sing. Low voices, slow rhythm. The earth seemed to hum. 2 large bowls were brought forward, one filled with fire, the other with water. Between them, a smooth black stone was placed on the ground. "You must place your hands on the stone," Jalen explained. "Then pass between fire and water. If your heart is true, the stone will speak. And if it's not," Daniel asked. "Then the trial ends," Thomas said softly. "And so does everything." Daniel stepped forward. His hands were shaking. He touched the black stone. At first, nothing happened. Then heat, then cold, then darkness. He felt pulled deep inside himself. The world vanished, and visions began. He saw a war, villages burning, children crying, warriors screaming. He saw betrayal, blood, and silence. He saw Vakari standing over fallen men. He saw white settlers with guns and fear in their eyes. Then came something else. Hope. He saw a village where children laughed together, where songs from different tongues filled the air. He saw people trading, helping, healing. He saw Leona, older, teaching young ones. And he saw himself, standing among them, not as a hero, but as one of them. The visions faded. Daniel fell to his knees, gasping. The stone under his hands was warm now, glowing faintly. The elders stepped forward, their faces filled with awe. "The stone has accepted him," Sani whispered. Daniel looked up, tears on his face. "It showed me everything. The worst, the best, what might be." "And what did you feel?" Toma asked. "Fear," Daniel said, "but also purpose." Leona came to his side, helping him stand. "Now you see why this matters." Daniel nodded slowly. "If we do nothing, war will come. But if we walk forward, there's still a chance." Toma raised his staff. "Then the trial is past. You carry the stone's memory now." The people around them bowed their heads. But across the camp, far beyond the sacred circle, a shadow moved in the trees. Bakari had seen everything, and now he knew the stone had chosen. He would not let that stand. Daniel stood in the center of the sacred circle, still feeling the heat of the stone on his palms. The chanting had stopped. The people around him watched in silence, their eyes full of hope and fear. He opened his mouth to speak, but then came the sound. Hoofbeats, not the soft, steady rhythm of tribal horses, but a faster, sharper sound. Boots against dirt, leather against metal. Soldiers. From the ridge above the camp, blue coats appeared. At least 20 men on horseback, rifles on their backs. Their leader was a tall man with a gray mustache and sharp eyes. He raised his hand. "Lower your weapons," the officer shouted. "This meeting is unauthorized." Panic rippled through the tribes. Arrows were drawn, spears raised. The peaceful camp was no longer peaceful. Thomas stepped forward, his arms raised. "This is sacred land. We gather in peace." The officer ignored him. "You are trespassing on federal territory. Disperse now, or we will take action." Daniel stepped between the two sides, hands raised. No one wants a fight. But the soldiers had already spread into position. Their rifles were loaded, aimed. The tribal warriors stood firm, arrows pulled tight, eyes locked on the outsiders. One mistake, one sudden move, and everything would fall apart. Leona joined Daniel. Her voice was calm. "If they fire, it's over." "We can't let that happen," Daniel whispered. From the back of the group, Vakari appeared. He held no weapon, yet, but his presence made every warrior tense. "You see," he said, loud enough for all to hear. "This is why we cannot trust them. They bring steel to our fire." The officer barked, "You step back or be shot." Vakari smiled coldly, but said nothing. Daniel turned to the officer. "My name is Daniel Moore. This land is mine. These people are here by my invitation." "This is not about your land," the officer snapped. It's about safety. Daniel stepped closer. Then listen. No one here is armed against you. Lower your guns. Impossible, the officer replied. Behind him, one young soldier looked nervous. His hands trembled. Daniel saw it, the fear. Not hate, just fear. He spoke again. We are not enemies. Leona raised her voice. Look around you. Look at the faces. These are fathers, mothers, children, not threats. Still, no one moved. Then something strange happened. The stone in Daniel's hand began to glow again. Soft, golden light. Everyone saw it, even the soldiers. The young man lowered his rifle first, then another, and another. Within moments, half the soldiers had lowered their guns. The officer stared at them, furious. Stand down now, or... Thomas stepped forward. Or what? You will shoot peace into the ground. For a long second, everything froze. Then the officer dropped his arm. 10 minutes, he growled. Then we're clearing this place. The gun stayed lowered. But the danger had only stepped back, not disappeared. The soldiers had stepped back, but not far. They stood in a line at the edge of the camp, watching every move. Guns were still close. I still hard. The tribal warriors kept their arrows ready, just in case. In the middle of all this, Daniel sat on his knees near the fire. His hands trembled slightly, though he did not know why. Leona approached quietly. In her hands was the stone, smooth, dark, ancient. But now it glowed. A soft light pulsed inside it, like a quiet heartbeat. She knelt beside him and held the stone out. Take it, she said. Daniel looked at her. Why now? Because the moment is here, she answered. Because you've seen both sides. And now the truth must choose. He hesitated, then slowly reached out. The moment his fingers touched the stone, the light grew brighter. Warm. Alive. It wrapped around his hands like water made of gold. Gasps came from the people nearby. Even the soldiers noticed the glow. Daniel closed his eyes, and then the visions returned. But they were different now. He saw people, his people, shaking hands with tribal leaders. He saw shared meals, shared fires, shared land. He saw songs being taught in 2 languages. Children playing, laughing, learning both stories. But he also saw something else. He saw what would happen if they failed. Fear spreading like wildfire. Villages turning into battlegrounds. Truth lost in broken promises. The stone whispered, not in words but in feeling. This power is not for war. It is for memory. For healing. Daniel opened his eyes. Tears rolled down his face, though he was not sad. Not fully. He turned to Leona. This stone doesn't give power. It shows it. She nodded. Yes. It shows what's inside us. And what could be? Daniel stood up, holding the glowing stone high for all to see. This doesn't belong to one side, he said. It belongs to everyone willing to face the truth. He looked toward the soldiers. You fear what you don't understand. He turned to the warriors. And you guard the past like a wound. But this, he held out the stone, is not a weapon. It's a mirror. It shows what we carry inside. The officer stepped forward. What do you want from us? Not surrender, Daniel said. Recognition. The officer's brow furrowed. Daniel spoke louder now. The only real power is to remember and choose better. Vakari, who stood near the tree line, scoffed. Words. Dreams. Nothing more. Daniel looked at him. Dreams become truth when people act. Then he turned to everyone. Let this be our beginning, not our end. Silence fell. But in that silence, something changed. People were listening, not to argue, but to understand. And the stone in Daniel's hands glowed even brighter. The camp was quiet. No one moved. No one shouted. The weapons were still there, rifles, spears, arrows, but none were raised. Daniel stood in the center, the stone of truth still glowing in his hands. But he no longer looked afraid. He looked certain. He took a deep breath. I'm not a warrior, he said. I don't speak for any government or any tribe. I speak as a man who saw someone drowning and chose to help. He looked at the soldiers. You came here because you saw danger. I understand that. But look again. These people brought food, music, history, not war. Then he turned to the warriors. You hold pain. I know. The world has taken too much from you. But pain can turn into peace if we let it. He looked at Leona, then at the crowd. This land has blood in its soil. but it also has roots. And those roots are strong enough to hold something new if we plant it together. The wind blew softly through the trees. Smoke from the fire curled toward the sky. Toma stepped forward. "And what do you suggest, Daniel Moore?" "A treaty," Daniel said. "Not between governments or councils, but between people." He pulled a small notebook from his coat. It was old, leather-bound, filled with pages stained by time and use. "I don't have power, but I have paper, and I have a pen." He tore out the first page and began to write. "I, Daniel Moore, promise to protect peace between all people on this land. I will listen before I speak. I will offer help before I raise my hand. I will remember, always, that peace begins with one choice." He signed it. Then he handed the notebook to Toma. Toma read the words silently, then nodded. "I will sign." He wrote his name in his native script. Then Sonny signed. Then Jalen. Leona was next. She smiled and pressed the pen to the paper. One by one, others stepped forward. Warriors, hunters, farmers, mothers. Even one of the young soldiers, barely more than a boy, signed his name with shaking fingers. Vakari stood at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed, face hard. He did not move. Daniel turned to him. "You don't have to sign, but you have to choose." Vakari said nothing, but for the first time his eyes looked unsure. The notebook passed from hand to hand. No speeches, no shouting, just quiet agreement, just choice. By sunset, the page was filled with names. Different languages, different writing styles. One promise, a peace that began not with law, but with listening. Daniel looked at the page. It was not perfect, but it was real, and that was enough. The smoke from the forge was lighter now. Daniel Moore had returned to his work as a blacksmith, but things were not the same. Not inside him, not on the land around him. It had been 5 months since the trial of truth. 5 months since the treaty written in a worn notebook had been signed, name by name, hand by hand. Now, he walked a familiar path with unfamiliar joy. Ahead of him was the village. It had no official name yet. Some called it the Middle Place. Others called it New Route, but most simply called a home. The houses were made of both wood and clay. Some had woven walls. Others had stone ovens in the center. There were colors everywhere, flags, flowers, painted doors, and voices. Laughter. Children ran between the homes, some with long braids, others with freckles and boots too big for their feet. They chased each other without caring who came from where. Leona stood in the open schoolhouse, a soft drum in her lap. She sang in the old tongue, slow and steady, while a group of children repeated after her. Daniel watched from a distance, smiling. She looked peaceful, strong, herself. When she saw him, her face lit up. "You came," she said, walking toward him. "I said I would," he answered. "I heard today was the planting." Leona nodded. "The last tree goes in before sunset." They walked together to the center of the village, where 5 young trees stood in a circle. Each had a small marker, one for each tribe. At the base of every tree, a piece of the sacred stone had been buried, broken on purpose, not to destroy it, to share it. Daniel stood quietly as the last child placed the final shard into the earth and covered it with soil. No speeches, just soft drumming and a few quiet tears. Leona whispered, "Now the truth lives in the roots." Daniel looked around. The fire in this place was not from war, it was from creation, from meals cooked together, from forges that bent metal into tools instead of blades. "Do you ever think it'll fall apart?" Daniel asked. Leona took his hand. "Maybe, maybe not, but we gave the children something better to start with." He nodded. "That's enough." As the sun dipped low behind the trees, the sky turned gold. Children danced in a circle. Elders watched with tired eyes and full hearts. Daniel felt the warmth of the fire again, but this time it didn't burn. It healed. What do you think? Was Daniel right to trust her? Can peace really begin with one person's choice? Tell us what you would have done. Leave a comment below. We read every one of them. And if this story touched you, like the video and subscribe for more powerful stories that stay with you long after they end.